Hey guys, just a quick video here, follow-up of the anti-run on valve video and the emission system. I made a mistake again. I made a mistake, but again I'm gonna say it one more time, even though I keep saying it every time when people thank me for sharing my knowledge and things like that. I keep saying, no guys, thank you, because you're the ones that help me do everything as I'm doing it right now. Because that's the beauty of this channel, the beauty of the Rusty Beauties, that actually here this is not only my knowledge, this is the summary of the knowledge of about, I don't know, maybe 2,000 people. Because when I make mistakes, and I make mistakes of course because nobody's perfect. Yeah, I know I'm almost there, but I'm still not perfect. So when I make mistakes, there's always somebody to correct me, and I thank you guys so much for that. And just recently I read, and I even shared that on Facebook, a sentence saying that don't correct the fool because he's gonna hate you. Correct the wise man and he's gonna appreciate you. So I consider myself a wise man and I really appreciate when you guys correct me. Don't be shy to tell me, Elin, you made a mistake, because I make mistakes, a lot of mistakes, and thanks to you guys I correct them. So what's the point here? The point is that the wiring, if you remember what I did with the wiring, is this: I wired the anti-run-on valve to be energized every time the engine is running, but actually it should be exactly the other way around. It needs to be energized when the engine is not running, and I'll explain you why. That's why the brown with red wire that I moved from one pin to another on the ignition switch actually has to go back to where it was. That was correct. I made a mistake there. And this is thanks to John Schmidt and Glenn Barrickman, who commented, and even Glenn sent me an email. And Glenn, I'm sorry, I think I misspelled your name. It's double N, I know. I'm sorry I misspelled it in my response to your email. So anyways, let me explain a little bit what they told me and what I did research on, and and we're gonna go from there. Alright, so first of all, you know, our valve has two terminals on top, right? And these two terminals, one is connected to the oil pressure switch, right? And the other side of the oil pressure switch is grounded. So there's a little switch here inside, which when we have high oil pressure, this switch closes. When we have low pressure, this switch opens. So here it is closed. When it's down, it's open, right? So when we have high pressure, the switch closes, and then we have ground on this side of the solenoid of the valve. When the pressure goes down, the switch opens, and then we don't have ground anymore. The other side is connected to the ignition switch, right? And on the other side of the ignition switch we have plus 12 volt, right? So my logic was that when we have high pressure, this is when the switch is closed, and this is when we have ground on this side, and this is when we need also power on the other side, right? Because if we have power on this side and we don't have ground on this side, what's the point of the valve? We don't need it because it's not going to work anyways. So I thought, to have high oil pressure, we need the engine to be running, so we need the power to go there when the ignition is on. So that's why I moved this wire from a terminal which was powered when the ignition was off to a terminal which was powered when the ignition was on. But that was my mistake. When John commented on the YouTube channel, I thought, okay, he's wrong, because we can't have power here if we don't have ground. There's no point for that. But then later Glenn sent me an email too with a little bit more explanation, and then I figured it out. And I'll tell you a little bit later. We're gonna come back here and I'm gonna tell you why. So I want to explain how the valve works, because when two people told me the same thing, then I said, okay, maybe I'm misinterpreting something, or I don't know, but let me see how this valve works and let's see who is right, who is wrong. And then I went and did a research and how the valve works. So this is the canister with the big hoses on top and everything, the absorption canister, and this canister is connected to our anti-run-on valve. So this valve looks something like that, let's say. We have a stem. I'm gonna over-exaggerate with the size of the stem, but it looks like that. It tapers here and then goes down with a little bit smaller rod. And at the end it has a rubber or some sealing material that can open and close. On the other side we have the little vacuum hose that goes to the intake manifold. And this stem can go up and down. There's a solenoid here, which is basically an electromagnetic coil, which when it is energized, if we have power and ground, this pulls this stem up. And when it's not energized, there's a spring here which pushes it back down. So there's something like this here, and when the stem is down, there's possibility for air to come this way and this way around it. When the stem is up, this closes and there's no more air going anywhere. On the other side, here we have also another valve inside, so it's a double valve. So this other valve is something like that. So, when the stem is down, this valve here is open, but this one is closed. When this is energized, this goes up, this valve closes, but this valve opens here and air is able to pass through here and goes into the intake manifold. So my main mistake was that I thought that when the evaporative system here was working, it needed to be closed, but actually that's exactly the opposite. That's what I didn't figure out. This system needs to be open here, it needs to vent from somewhere. So how it vents? The valve is not energized, so when the engine running, the valve is not energized, which means that the stem is down, this valve is closed, this one is open, air is coming in and it's going that way. It's venting the canister. When we kill the engine though, this is when the valve needs to be energized, then this valve closes and this valve opens, and then the intake sucks air from here, because we have vacuum here on this side, right? So it sucks air from here, the vacuum turns into ambient pressure, and there's no more fuel sucked into the cylinders, and that's why the engine stalls. Okay, so we figured it out. We need the coil to be energized when the engine is off. What's gonna happen though when we have the engine off for 6 hours, 8 hours, and the solenoid is energized? We're gonna drain the battery, right? Yes. So that is why we have this pressure switch. Now I figured it out later. We have this pressure switch. When we turn the engine off, we still have the oil pressure up. For a second or two, we still have this switch closed. In the meantime, we turn the engine off, we have power now going here. We have positive and we have ground. That's just for a second, but it's just enough for this valve to close, this to open, the intake to suck air, and to kill the engine dies, and then the oil pressure drops, and there's no more ground on this side. So now we have power here, but we don't have ground, and the valve opens again here. So that's how it works. And next time we want to start the car, we have this closed, so we don't have a vacuum leak. So that's the whole system. That's how it works, and that's why we're gonna have to now take this back from here and connect it here, and that will be our perfect situation. Let's see if this is gonna work. So here we still have this black and green wire disconnected, which I have no idea what it is for. This is the terminal on which we had power only when the ignition is on. Oh, yeah, of course. Well, the switch is not going to work. So when we turn the ignition on, I will start the car. Okay, now the ignition is on, and we have power here, but we need actually power when the ignition is off, and I'm pretty sure this is the terminal which has power when the ignition is off. Right. So we're gonna take this brown and red again back to this one, and black with green, I'm not gonna connect it yet because I don't think it needs to be connected. I'm just gonna put it there because the other end is hanging here at the back and we don't need it. So let's see if I can put it back now. Okay, and now let's start the car and we will see what happens on that end. Yeah. Hasn't been started in a couple of days now. And now when I touch it underneath, I can feel that the valve is open, the bottom part is open, which means now the canister is ventilated, but our little vacuum valve on top is closed. Good. So now when I turn the engine, what we have to steer is actually double click. The valve has to close underneath and open the vacuum valve and then go down again. So the stem has to go up and then down. Let's see if this is gonna happen. Actually, I heard the second one. I didn't hear the first one, but I heard the second one. Let me try again. Yes. So that's how it works. I can't hear the first one, but if it goes down, which this means that it went up before that. Something that I can't see, I can't hear. You know what? To make it more visual, we're gonna connect instead of the valve, we're gonna connect a light on that wiring. This way we're gonna be sure that everything works well, right? So we're gonna take the wiring from the valve and we're gonna hook it up here. Okay, now you should see it. So let's start the car. Okay, so now our valve is still not energized. Let's see if it is gonna energize for a second and then come off when we turn off the engine. Exactly. You see? That's what we need. So this means it gets energized for a second or two and then gets de-energized again, which means no battery drainage, right? So we are finally, oh my god, we almost shortened it here, right? Yes. So that's how it should be wired. I can connect it back to the valve and we are okay now. So one more time, thank you John, thank you Glenn for your input, and that's to everybody. Guys, don't hesitate to correct me if you see that I'm making a mistake. I'm not gonna judge you, I'm not gonna be angry at you. Exactly the opposite. I will appreciate it because I'm always happy to learn something new, and of course I don't want to have wrong information on my channel and people to be blaming me for talking BS, which I did in my last video. Anyways, thank you guys, thanks for watching, see you later, bye.